Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Golden Black Radio as we take a look at this week in Purdue athletics. Here's your host, Kyle Charter. Purdue has a path to a Big Ten West title, needing a couple of wins and a bit of help to get that number one seed, and the Boilermakers put themselves in that position after an upset win Saturday at Illinois. That plus some hoops talk on Gold and Black Radio. Kyle Charter's here. Tom Dienhart. We'll talk to Brian Newbert in a couple of minutes. Tom, the Boilermakers do have a path, as it turns out, to being able to play either Ohio State or Michigan, it would seem, in Indianapolis in early December. They've got to win a couple of games against arguably the two worst teams in each division, Northwestern and Indiana. They also need Iowa to lose a football game. All of that because Purdue got an upset victory against Illinois. All things considered, not a bad place for Purdue to be.
No, it's not. You like their chances to, again, at least win out. And like you laid out there, Kyle, they need Iowa to lose one of its last two games. The Hawkeyes have to go to Minnesota this week, and then they finish at home against Nebraska. So if it doesn't happen, he needs to go first. It's probably not going to happen because we all know Nebraska is just god-awful. So we shall see. Even if both teams win out, Kyle, you know, then Iowa obviously would take the banner. Now, the help Iowa needs is Illinois has got to lose a game, and I think that's going to happen at Michigan on Saturday. So what I'm trying to say is Iowa looks like they have a little slightly easier path to Indianapolis and Purdue. But if they both went out, Illinois loses, Iowa, Purdue are 6-3, the Boilermakers can still call themselves Big Ten West champs, buddy.
Yeah, a weird scenario in which it feels like sort of nobody controls their own destiny, especially when you think about the fact that Illinois has to play at Michigan, which seems like an uphill battle a little bit, to say the least. But Purdue's a big favorite against Northwestern. Purdue will be probably a double-figure favorite, I would think, at Indiana. The Boilermakers have done well as the underdog over the last couple of seasons. Maybe they've not done quite as well as a favorite, but they're big favorites in these two games. You would have to suspect that if Purdue continues to play the way that it did on Saturday, that it should be able to get two victories here down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, these are bad teams, like you said off the top. Northwestern is just in a free fall. Opened the year with that win in Ireland against Nebraska. Have not won since, 9 losses in a row. The offense is just pitiful, Kyle. Really struggling on that side of the ball. There's no playmakers. They played 4 quarterbacks last week, buddy. 4 in one game. They got 31-3 at Minnesota. So not sure who's even going to be starting for them on Saturday. We'll have to stay tuned there. But on and on it's gone for the Wildcats. And then, of course, Indiana, too, Kyle. They started 3-0 and have not won since. They've lost 7 in a row. So, yeah, they've kind of hit the skids as well, and they have their own issues at quarterback, too. So you're right. I mean, upsets happen. Crazy things happen. We know it. You know, I'm sure Jeff Brom is going to be on alert, as every coach always is. But, my gosh, for people like you and I and the fans out there, you look at those two games and go, my goodness, Purdue should just roll these guys, right?
Yeah, Northwestern has struggled. Indiana has only won 1 of its last 16 Big Ten games. That was the opener this year. That seems a little crazy now. On that Friday night, they got a victory against Illinois. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk more with Tom about football. Look back at that victory against Illinois. That here in a second on Gold and Black Radio. On the far end of Main Street in downtown Lafayette, you'll find East End Grill, industrial and classic. The restaurant is built like a stack house, but it handles like a bistro. East End Grill's menu includes creative starters, simple chopped salads, burgers, fresh fish, and steaks, and the signature shrimp and grits. The staff prepares every item from scratch and emphasizes simple meals that incorporate fresh, local, and seasonal ingredients. The warm and inviting dining room features a cozy bar that includes a great selection of craft beer, inspired cocktails, and a robust and expanding wine list. Whatever your entertainment needs are, a cocktail at the bar, dinner with family, or a special event at the private dining room, the energized and attentive staff is here for you. East End Grill in downtown Lafayette, welcome to our table. Looking to start a new holiday tradition? Thanksgiving officially marks the start of Sand Valley Pursuit's season. Spend quality time indulging in a chef-driven menu complete with craft cocktails and homemade pie. Reserve your experience today. Call 866-976-1069 or visit sandvalleypursuits.com. All right, Tom, the Boilermakers get a 31-24 victory against Illinois on Saturday. Purdue got off to a slow start in the game, though just trailed 7-0, not like the slow starts that we had seen the Boilermakers begin with against Wisconsin and Iowa in the last two games. I don't know what the spark was there for Purdue, but once it found its groove a little bit again, especially offensively and then, defensively too, the Boilermakers made some plays in all facets. Thought offensively, Purdue got some help from Payne Durham and TJ Sheffield, maybe taking some of that relief off of Charlie Jones and Aiden O'Connell a little bit. And the offense certainly looked better and had some good balance, too, with Devin Mockabee.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Purdue did fall behind once again, though. They fell behind 21-0 at Wisconsin, 17-0 against Iowa, and then 7-0 at Illinois. But they tied it up at halftime at Illinois, got the lead, and then sort of took care of business from there. And I think you hit the highlights on offense for Purdue, Kyle, just to get some relief for Charlie Jones via Payne Durham and his two big TD catches. You mentioned TJ Sheffield. I think he's the clear number 2 guy. He's kind of been come and go, but by and large, he looks like the most reliable second wideout option opposite Jones. Boy, Kyle, that 15-yard catch on 4th and 9 late in the fourth quarter was absolutely huge, as we all know. So that was big. And you mentioned Devin Mockabee, number 45. That's 4 100-yard rushing games now, my friend, for the walk-on. And the last Purdue back, Kyle, 4 100 yards in one season. 2005, Jared Boyd. How about that? So
wow.
He was big in cold weather games. Keep feeding Mockabee, right? I mean, this makes the whole offense better.
Yeah, Mockabee might have a chance for a 1,000-yard game, 1,000-yard season, especially if you add in the bowl game. He's got 730 or 40 or whatever it is on the season. Considering he didn't play a whole lot in the first several games, it's been quite the season for the redshirt freshman. That you mentioned that 4th down play. It's a huge play. Obviously, the pass to TJ Sheffield. Purdue was sort of in no man's land. I tweeted I usually have strong opinions about what Jeff Brom is doing. I really didn't know what the answer was on that 4th down play, whether Purdue should go for it, whether it should try to kick a long field goal into the wind, whether it should punt. I mean, it was, in my opinion, a tough decision. It turns out to be the right decision. And, man, that really went a long way to sealing the victory for the Boilermakers.
Yeah, huge. And then Finneran kicks the 25-yard field goal into the wind to give Purdue a 10-point lead, 31-21.
Yeah.
And, the offense did a lot of good things. They checked a lot of boxes. How about the line, too, Kyle? This is, I think, the 5th game in a row they've only had 6 guys to play, and they've held up very well. No injuries, no other injuries, which is obviously good considering the shaky depth there. So they're playing pretty well, I think. I think we all would have to agree with that. And how about the defense? The much maligned secondary, Kyle Charters, I think by and large, did pretty well. Tommy DeVito's not Dan Marino, but still they didn't give up too many big plays in the pass game. And how about keeping Chase Brown, the nation's number 1 rusher, as far as total yards go, under 100 yards for the first time this season? Pretty good effort by that defense overall, I'd say there.
Yeah, I had said earlier in the day that if you could keep Chase Brown under 120, you'd take that as a victory. Heck, maybe you'd take it as a victory if you could keep him under 130 or 140, but to hold him under 100 yards, pretty darn impressive by Purdue's defense. Really, the Boilermakers played defense outside of being gashed for the first touchdown on that drive by Illinois. Man, the defense really stepped up. And much maligned, I think that Purdue defensively, we paid so much attention to the pass defense. Really, the rush defense had not been very good over the last couple of outings, either against Wisconsin or Iowa. It was just a much better effort. Purdue tackled better It got a big turnover when it needed it, with Kieran Douglas getting the tipped pass off the head there of Lawrence Johnson. I mean, it was just a pretty good 60 minutes of defense by the Boilermakers.
Yeah, it really was. Like you said, given the way Braylon Allen of Wisconsin and Caleb Johnson of Iowa ran all over Purdue the previous two games, and here comes Chase Brown. We thought maybe the bleeding would continue as far as stopping the run, but obviously it did not. And you talked about the key turnover by Douglas there. Boy, huge, and he obviously got hurt. Basically had to be carried off the field, couldn't put any weight on I think his left leg, and from it just seems like that was a pretty serious injury, and we'll get an update today, but my guess was that it doesn't look good. Maybe the same for Clyde Washington, who hurt an ankle. I saw him in a boot after the game. So, there was a little bit of attrition there, but didn't look like anything significant beyond those two. Branson Dean left the game for a while, but he returned, Kyle. He played very well. And I don't think you can talk about 72 without talking about the penalties, right? 12 penalties on Illinois, 5 PIs. Brett Bielema said after the game they had 4 PIs for the entire season. I asked Aiden O'Connell after the game about the Illinois PIs, and he said, look, they play a lot of man coverage, and when you play man coverage, you have more of a likelihood to draw PIs, I guess. As receivers try to battle back to the ball, D-backs tend to grab them sometimes. So that certainly was a huge factor for Purdue, I think.
I really thought all those calls were fine, aside from maybe, I think it was the first one, might have been a little bit questionable. The other one seemed like defensive pass interference to me.
One dubious one, yeah. There's one dubious one.
Yeah. Aiden O'Connell was good. Probably his best game since the Nebraska game. He also used those wheels a little bit, a couple of carries for 33 yards. Man, those runs on the option were just were funny. Because he was so open, he just sort of kept looking around in slow motion, waiting for somebody to come tackle him, and eventually just decided to set down, as he really should. But, it was a good game by him. He was efficient. He took his chances. Just the one bad throw. I'm not sure if he didn't see the zone coverage or what happened there. Illinois might have crossed him up a little bit. But other than that, he took what was available, it seemed like. And the option, believe it or not, got Purdue's offense going a little bit. It was sort of crazy how that worked out. But Aiden O'Connell was pretty good.
Yeah, you're right. The speed option, I'm using air quotes right now, Kyle. You just can't see me. But, yeah, it was a wrinkle that Purdue introduced us last week. They must have seen something on film. Illinois obviously was surprised by it. O'Connell had the big, 24-yard run, I think. And I think on the next play, they pitched it to Mockabee, and they didn't take the pitch man on that play. And Mockabee went around the left side for a pretty good long gain as well. So, yeah. A nice little change of pace there to catch Illinois off guard and to move the chains, if you will, move the ball. So always got to be thinking. I'm sure Brom introduces some new things every week. But, again, just a pretty good overall job. I talked about the penalties, too. I think the defense, too, talking to Branson Dean afterward, Kyle, he said this last week. They just really simplified things. Didn't have a lot of calls on first and second down. Just wanted guys to be able to play without thinking, play fast and pin their ears back. And he really thought that simplified approach on the early downs really helped the defense on Saturday.
All right, Tom. So Purdue could go into bucket week controlling its own destiny in the West if Iowa and Illinois both lose this weekend, and Purdue, of course, beats Northwestern. Will it happen that way going into the bucket game against Indiana?
That'd be like a de facto Purdue home game if that's the case on Thanksgiving weekend, I think. I guess I don't think so. I think Purdue's going to win, Kyle. I just don't know. I don't think Minnesota's going to beat Iowa if Tanner Morgan's not playing out. We don't know that yet at this recording. If he plays, I give Minnesota a shot. They're actually a favorite right now by a handful of points. But, again, if Morgan doesn't play, I don't like Minnesota's chances. So, right now, thinking his status is up in the air, I'm saying Iowa's probably going to win. And again, that will obviously not make that next Saturday quite as maybe intoxicating for Boilermaker fans.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Tom.
Take care, buddy.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll bring Brian in, talk a little bit of basketball ahead of Purdue's big game against Marquette and Mackey Arena on Tuesday. We'll do that coming up next. This is Gold and Black Radio.
At Purdue Federal Credit Union, it's about a relationship. A relationship that goes where you go, wherever you are in life. A relationship that's committed to free financial wellness resources, lower fees, and innovative digital banking solutions. Because we believe in people helping people. Let's build your financial future together. Purdue Federal Credit Union, your trusted financial partner for life. Federally insured by NCUA.
When it comes to land sales, it pays to have experts in your corner. Acre Pro Midwest Farm Group is your local farmland specialist. With decades of experience in Indiana agriculture, no one knows the market better. Whether you're doing a 1031 exchange or simply buying and selling farmland, your local Acre Pro agent will walk the land with you and ensure the deal is done right. Visit acrepro.com or call 765-587-3185 to talk to your local land expert today. Again, 765-587-3185.
Experience unparalleled comfort, service, and cuisine at the Whitaker Inn. This Midwestern oasis is perfect for a relaxing staycation or weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn.
Designing and building since 1968, T&W has changed the way people think about construction. T&W's three-stage approach to designing and building is unmatched throughout the construction industry. Learn more about T&W's people, passion, and projects at twdesignbuild.com.
Welcome to Gold and Black Radio as we take a look at this week in Purdue athletics.
Hi, with Brian talking a little bit of Purdue basketball. The Boilermakers are 2-0. Got a big win against Austin Peay on Friday night. Marquette in town on Tuesday as part of the Gavitt games. Mackey Arena, 8:30 on the tip-off on that one. Brian, Zach-Edey is pretty good, especially when the opponent doesn't really have anyone to guard him. Man, 30 points. I don't know if I've ever seen. Have you seen as efficient a game as 30 points on 13 field goal attempts with however many rebounds he had also in 27 minutes? I mean, pretty impressive job by Zach-Edey here to start this season.
Yeah, and that was what Purdue needed. I don't want to say they necessarily needed it against Austin Peay, but that's what Purdue needs from him is when a defense comes out one-on-one against him, he needs to just work them over. And, that's what exactly what he did against Austin Peay. He came off the 4-13 game against Milwaukee that obviously reeked of a outlier. And I think Purdue in general against Milwaukee just wasn't very good around the rim for whatever reason. Yeah. But obviously, Austin Peay, for whatever reason, just kind of dared him to go off instead of making Purdue make threes, which Purdue didn't do anyway, even if they had. But, yeah, that's exactly what Purdue's expecting from Zach-Edey here. Now, kind of the next test for him is going to be when a higher level of defense really comes at him hard with some help and stuff like that, and him continuing to kind of make the right read, make the right pass, and make the right play and all that stuff. But that game against Austin Peay was exactly what Purdue needs from him in situations like that.
The numbers for Edey is, on the season through the two games are really good. I don't know even where you would start with what is most impressive here. He's averaging 21 points, shooting 62% from the field. He's hit 10 of his 14 free throws, averaging 14 rebounds per game. He has 7 blocks. For a guy his size, averaging 27 and a half minutes per game is incredible. The other one, though, that sticks out to me, Brian, is for a guy who is 7'4", B, touches the ball on just about every Purdue possession, to have only 4 turnovers, I think is pretty impressive. Now, as you said, some other opponents here are going to be able to match up better against him and maybe send some more pressure his direction. But 4 turnovers through a couple of games for a guy of his size who touches the ball as often is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the big keys to his success this season. Obviously, the last time we saw him play last year, he turned the ball over 5 times against St. Peter's in less than 20 minutes or something like that. And that's got to be he's Purdue's most important player. He's Purdue's, the guy their offense is built around, but he's also, probably their most important offensive decision maker. Now, some of the turnovers are going to be related to things that aren't necessarily decisions. He's going to get the occasional offensive foul, things like that, some more legitimate than others. But what he has to do is he has to make sure he doesn't airmail a lot of those passes out to the corners on the backside, things like that. And he's done a really good job with that. He's looked like as advanced a passer as I think he has in his Purdue career. And that's, I don't want to say it's as important. I don't want to say it's more important, certainly, but that's really important for Purdue. In addition to his ability to be efficient around the rim and at the foul line, he's got to make good decisions. He's got to make good passes, and he's got to make sure that those turnovers are kept to a minimum, especially those live ball turnovers, because when the ball gets inside and you turn the ball over and it's live, the ball's gotten so deep, that's going to put your transition defense at a disadvantage too. So the amount of responsibility on him this season is as great as probably any individual player I can think of here, at least lately. Through two relatively irrelevant games, I think he's done pretty well with it.
Purdue has not shot the ball particularly well through the first couple of games. Maybe a lot of that is just the one game against Austin Peay, and it is a small sample size, but Purdue shooting just 26% from three-point range. Nobody's hit better than 30% of their shots from the perimeter this season through the two games. Any concern there, or is the example or the sample size just too small at this point?
Well, I think there's always concern when you have such a small sample size that you don't have a big enough sample size to call something an outlier. I think we can sit here and look at Zach-Edey going 4-13 from the floor against Milwaukee and say, hey, the 7'4", 300-pound guy who's like a 60% career shooter is probably going to do better than this. But you always worry about inconsistency, especially with teams as young and as new as Purdue is. So I think, Purdue has to show it'll be consistent from three-point range. They love their pieces, but, a lot of these guys haven't played a lot of college basketball, and a lot of these guys are taking different shots now than they were taking last year. They're running more stuff for guys who, haven't had stuff run for them before. You saw Ethan Morton the other day shoot a three on the move going from right to left, and I don't know how many of those threes he took last year. I thought they were all good looks. There were a couple of quick ones, but I think that when you just get the ball on the rim sometimes, and Zach Edey's a foot from the basket, that's not as low percentage a shot as you think it is, because I think Purdue's offensive rebounding percentage this year is going to be pretty robust, and I think that's going to erase a lot of misses. But I think Purdue's just got to still has to prove they're going to be consistent. I think Fletcher Lawyer is still kind of settling in. I think Braden Smith still has to settle in a little bit. I think Brandon Newman is probably pretty amped up right now, and probably has to settle in a little bit. If I were Purdue, I would try to get Mason Gillis and Caleb First a lot of looks here, because I think those are two guys who are going to be strengths for you shooting the basketball. But no, I think you're always concerned about this stuff until it's proven to not be something you need to be concerned about.
Braden Smith might need to settle in a little bit, but he has been pretty good, as good as what sort of Matt Painter advertised to us a few weeks ago. What have you liked out of the freshman point guard?
I think the spirit he plays with, the competitiveness he plays with, I think that's something that's important to this team. I think, I think personality can be a really important element that we tend not to talk all that much about because it's not as apparent as some other things. But I think just the way he carries himself as a competitor, I think is something that can really help this team. Now he's got to be careful not to let that get the best of him at times, and get in foul trouble by trying to take the ball from people, as is kind of his natural inclination. but I think that he just carries himself with kind of an edge that I think can probably be infectious on this team. I think that's a really positive thing. I think, he's going to have to settle into the college game a little bit more. You saw him make some pretty sloppy turnovers there against Austin Peay the other night. That might turn out to be a positive thing, because when you make those mistakes in games you're going to win anyway, when you throw some blind passes and you just kind of get out of control a little bit, you learn those lessons without it really affecting outcomes. And he now is going to go into the Marquette game with even a keener understanding of, hey, the stuff I could do in high school, driving baseline, leaving my feet in a crowd, things like that. That doesn't fly here. And I think, he's kind of the face of what I keep talking about in terms of November and December are all about sort of the process. He just needs to keep accumulating experience and becoming a better and better player and just getting more and more seasoning. By the time he's got a few more games under his belt, he's going to be pretty good, and he's pretty good right now.
The process will get sped up here a little bit over the next few weeks. The level of competition definitely increases. Marquette, West Virginia, potentially Gonzaga, another team out there in Portland. Florida State, the Seminoles might be
too early.
Well, or I'm saying that I don't know how that works. So Purdue wins, they probably play the winner of that other. I don't know. I assume that's how it works. Maybe I was chalking up a Purdue victory against West Virginia too early. Florida State on the road. Not sure the Seminoles are very good, but a true road game. We know how things have gone down there previously.
It doesn't matter how good Florida State is; they're always tough to play, and you're playing that 24 hours after you come back from Portland. So,
yeah, no doubt. But the point being that things get a little more real on Purdue. What are you sort of looking at here over these next several games in terms of Purdue's process and preparedness?
Yeah, just they've put a lot of time into working against the press, obviously, and that starts against Marquette. Now, that's also, it's not just about the nuts and bolts of beating a press, but it tests your poise, it tests your ability to play in front of a pretty enthused environment here. It tests your discipline in terms of taking the right shots. It tests your half-court defense because if your opponent's not scoring, they can't set up their press. So kind of the press is going to be something that everybody talks about here, and for good reason. There's a reason Matt Painter was working on it an inordinate amount, I think, from day one of practice this preseason, but I think it's also kind of a proxy for a lot of other things about this team that they still have to kind of prove themselves in, most notably defense. I think that, Purdue looked good defensively the last couple games, more engaged, more connected than you would have maybe expected from a team early on in the season with this little returning experience, stuff like that. But it really gets tested now as you take on a higher level of athlete, a better level of coaching, kind of things like that. They can't press you if they're not making field goals. So that's part of beating the press too.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
All right, that'll do it for the podcast for this week. We do thank you for listening. If you do like the podcast, leave us 5 stars and a comment as well. Be sure to subscribe via your favorite podcast app by searching Gold and Black Radio. All right, that'll do it for the show for this week, at least here on Monday. Of course, a pregame as we get set for Purdue Northwestern football. We'll drop that for you mid-morning on Friday. Thanks to our sponsors, as always. And for Tom Dienhart and Brian Hubert, I'm Kyle Charters. Thanks for listening. This is Gold and Black Radio.